I've been thinking a lot about something I saw. We were taking a taxi straight from Delhi airport to our hotel. We're on the highway, and just in the middle of the traffic, walking into the oncoming traffic, there was a sadhu, and he was just calmly and like deliberately walking straight into the oncoming traffic. It's quite a fast road. Also there were cows. You know, people often talk about that on the highways there are just cows walking freely. Cows are very sacred here, so, and obviously the sadhu is very sacred. But it was, you know, when you're driving and you just get a snapshot of someone's face just in the oncoming traffic, it kind of made an image in my head, a very strong image. And there was kind of a strange energy around that guy, because to do that, it's almost he was like in a daze. You know, he was sort of like, almost like in a dream, like he was sleepwalking, or maybe he was high, or maybe he's just in this kind of spiritual state that's completely different from my state. But the thing that was noticeable was how connected to the present he was. You know, he's not worried about taxes or savings or pensions or anything. He was just like completely free in the moment. So that's the thing, that in Eastern spirituality, you hear a lot about that, like ego, dissolving the ego. That's kind of the point of it. And I know that Carl Jung, when he came to India, he kind of really was struck by the intensity of the spirituality and how kind of Westerners need to have a different approach to it. And when you come to India, you really notice that. And particularly here in the mountains, it's a really Buddhist area. There's stupas everywhere and prayer flags and monasteries. You know, in a town we were staying in, it was one of the oldest monasteries in Ladakh, and therefore in India. It's like a really intense spiritual energy, and the people we were staying with were still engaging in the religion in a really strong way, and we got to kind of experience that. But as a Westerner with my kind of Western mind, you can't quite fit in, and I think Carl Jung thinks that's okay. It's like, as far as I understand, it's like Westerners need to kind of hold on to their consciousness and their ego, and that individuation comes in that way, whereas the Eastern philosophy is more like, you know, you aim to kind of lose your ego.
लेके कहाँ आओ? तेरा भी रूम में बारह का लेके आओ तनी। आके बैठल बैठे तेरा समय में नहीं लटे।
And often I find that when Westerners, sometimes they get a bit too attached to the kind of Eastern philosophy, and then it kind of doesn't seem to fit. And it's even like me and Phoebe have bought some Indian clothes. I bought a kurta and Phoebe bought a salwar kameez. And it's borderline feels inappropriate to our Western minds. You know, when you travel, you're kind of constantly engaging in that situation where you're coming with a different perspective, and how much to take part and how much not to take part, and what's appropriate and what isn't. I mean, also it's okay just to dive in, because when you're travelling, you're never going to hit that balance perfectly right, and in a way it doesn't matter. It's just about having the experience, and you can think about it afterwards. But I wanted to talk a bit more about how kind of spooky the energy is here in the mountains. Because at the higher altitude you sleep less well, particularly the first few nights. It's almost like you're more in like a daydream than a sleep dream. You're sort of like half asleep, half awake. But we've both had like very bad nightmares and very bad sleep, very restless. Like, I think it's partly the altitude, but it's also, it was strange being in that little village. It's very traditional, and it sort of is timeless because of that. You can imagine generations and generations of people, like the family we were staying with. And there is something kind of, it almost feels like you're connected to all the ghosts of the past, more so than in our like less traditional lives back home. In my half asleep state one night, I opened the window to look at the stars, and then I saw my reflection in the window, and it just scared me. I just looked scary because I had my keffiyeh on because it was so bright. I was covering my eyes, and so I like looked at my reflection, and it just looked spooky. I was half asleep, having these nightmares. I closed the window and went back to bed. But yeah, there's definitely something in the air here that's different. to travel in India, I think you do have to leave some of your kind of Western rigidity behind. You want to adopt some of the, it's about this balance between how to like take part properly. And it's something I heard Baldwin Bankrupt say. He was like, a lot of people treat India like a battle, and you should treat it like an adventure. And it seems to be exactly like that. It's like if you go at it with the intention of like, everyone's trying to scam you, everything's difficult, you're just going to have such a hard time. But if you can sort of let go a bit and just like go with the flow, it's just brilliant. And that's something else. I want to rent a bike up here, because in Ladakh it's like bikers paradise. Every other shop is a bike rental place, and there's Royal Enfields everywhere, people riding out even in the rain. But I'm kind of apprehensive because of the traffic, because people I've kind of got the British, even like when we're walking around, I've got the British kind of like, I let people go. I'm very like it kind of doesn't work. You kind of have to like, if there's a space, you take it, and you kind of, yeah, you kind of have to go with the flow a bit better. So I'm kind of apprehensive to ride on the roads because I'm going to have to be a bit more fluid in the traffic, but maybe I can do that. But that's another thing. It's like there's a fluidity here that's more flexible, and people just sort of manage, and it kind of just works. I've even heard like Dev Patel talk about, the actor. He was talking about how in India people's like body language is a lot more fluid, and you kind of have to be to kind of move through the streets. And in the West we're more like rigid and tight kind of. That kind of makes sense to me. Here I can see that. So yeah, so I'm going to have to adopt some of that flexibility to travel well in India.